Organissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.organissima.com. Organissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty. Organissima, New York.
Well, welcome back to the iHealth channel, the Fit and Fab channel, and iHealth Radio. New day, new topic, new guest. We're your host, one and the only Hurricane H. And we are going to be talking about a little bit of a unique combination of things that are important to all of us, and ultimately fitness, wellness, and lifestyles. And with me, I have a special guest. All the guests are specials. I have Kelli Calabrese, and she has a very unique talent because she's been doing a lot of things. She's a best-selling author. She's been on all the major networks. She's a speaker. She has her own company. She's sharing lifestyles with people and turning people's lives. So without any further ado, Kelli, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Outstanding. Thanks, Hurricane. It's great to be here.
Well, listen, I am glad that you're here. I know we had a little bit of scheduling thing, but it worked out and doing good. So I'm happy. We're good to go. Well, so first things first, people want to know about Kelli Calabrese. So what is the story behind your success? And I know you're also an entrepreneur, and you do a lot of things. So let's take us through all those experiences and also those challenges that you've come across throughout your life.
Okay, well, thank you. I knew early on what I wanted to do. At 13 years old, I wrote in my journal, I will be an exercise therapist, not really knowing exactly what that meant, but I figured out right away that you do things to move away from pain and towards pleasure. And for me, the pain was a really strong family history of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, stroke, cancer, alcoholism. I looked at all that and went, ooh, I don't want anything to do with that. But I also loved when I was running, dancing, jumping, swimming, softball, cheerleading, anything movement. There was just this endorphin rush that I thought was amazing. And I was so happy. And so I dedicated my life to helping people be well. When I was 17, I got certified and started working at a gym right away. And I went on to get 3 college degrees. The highest one is as a clinical exercise physiologist with a specialist in rehabilitation, and was fortunate to get into health club ownership and grew it to 4 chains. It was a family-owned health club with a partner of mine, and also managed corporate fitness centers for companies like Calvin Klein, BMW, Nabisco, had 9 different sites. And because this was, back in the late 80s, early 90s, personal training was still so new. So I founded a school to help prepare people to become medical exercise specialists and post-rehab technicians and fitness instructors, certified trainers. And that was really the first 14 years of my career. Was really fun and got very connected to the community, learned a lot about business and sales and serving and so on. And then my son was born. So that was the next turning point for me, where I knew that the mom I wanted to be and the life of a health club owner with, corporate sites and a school was not going to match. So thankfully, my partner was able to buy me out. And I came home and I was pregnant right away with my daughter. They're now 20 and 21. So that was a while ago. But I was just getting going with doing things online. So I started writing, speaking, consulting, editing, spokesperson, media work, and really did that for many years, and then relocated from the New York, New Jersey area to Dallas. And that was sort of the next turning point in my career when I got into running fitness boot camps, and with a friend opened up a couple of 100 locations in 9 countries, and got into the nutrition side of network marketing, became a top achiever in the company, helping people with, detox and cleansing and weight loss. And yes, definitely have been blessed to speak all over the world on stages and have been on all the major networks as a lifestyle coach. and yeah, best-selling books. And so it's been a fun journey.
Wow. Well, I have to admit, I did not do justice to, to introducing you early on. I mean, you have a lot more to offer than what I stated. So seriously, I mean, you have so much here in the background. And I mean, wow. I mean, I just had to take a little minute there, a second to just take a deep breath and just absorb it all. But you've started when it was all new, it was all exciting, different. Today, I mean, obviously it's still all over the map. I mean, there's so many variations when it comes to fitness and wellness and all these things, but you took it all the way, like to the whole concepts. I mean, besides the education concept, so you can support all those ideologies and all the stuff that you did, and you know exactly your stuff, which is important because you have to know your stuff to be able to deliver. But also, you running those businesses is not a picnic. I mean, I've been a gym buff for my life. I've been in martial arts, and I know it's not I mean, everyone my friends, especially those that own like gyms or, studios for, fitness or martial arts. I mean, it's a struggle. It's not easy. And now we're talking about franchises and larger, groups and corporations and worldwide multiple locations. That's a lot of, things to handle, a lot of issues, a lot of, I guess, control, and a lot of just getting it done. And that takes a lot of time of you. Now, I understand, you had your children, and that was a very big turning point. And it's funny you mentioned you moved from New York, New Jersey, because I am in Jersey. So you just right away, okay, I get it. Well, everybody now in New York and Jersey is trying to do the same thing, either go to Texas or Florida or somewhere in the South. So that's happening now, but you did that early on. And but really the attention here is to all the achievements. I mean, you kind of like really went through and quick, and just, give us a great, I guess, a snapshot of everything. But if we dissect each one of those opportunities and things that you've done, I mean, I think it will be motivational for a lot of people, and, and true inspiration, because not only you were determined at the age of 13, you actually had already in your mind what you want. And not a lot of people have that. Unfortunately, today, we had this discussion in a different show just recently where people sometimes they go to college, they don't even know what they want to do. They finish college, they still don't know what they're going to do. You had that determination early on, and you went through, and that's important because you knew what you wanted, you were determined, you had ambitions, and you also really did whatever it took to get there. You took the necessary steps, you took the action. As a matter of fact, the show that just I posted today was about intention and action and change. And really, you did all that. So you're a true example of what we covered yesterday in yesterday's show. So that's perfect. But for a lot of people, I mean, I'm sure people are listening right now, watching, they'll be like, wow, I want to be you. and yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, actually. I wish we all are like you, because that's the key. I mean, we have to look at people who are inspirational to us, people that will take us to the next level. And just listening to the story, I mean, tasking, doing multiple hats, all that stuff. And that's not easy. I mean, juggling all these opportunities. And I'm sure some of them were at the same time. Some of them were different times. You had the school. I actually ran a school before. I know how hard it is. Now, my school was real estate. It was not fitness, but I know exactly how it is. It's all the stuff from state to legislation to this, to that, rules to instruction, classroom, all the stuff. So there's a lot of operational pieces that come along with it. But then you said you had kids. They're grown now. That's great. But then you moved out, and there were other events in your life. You wrote books. Now, let's talk quickly about those books. What were the main topics of those books? And I know they're bestseller books. So tell us about them.
Yes, well, the first couple books that I wrote were not bestsellers, but the last three were. The first one I actually wrote was called Feminine, Firm, and Fit, and it was right after I had my daughter. I didn't gain a lot of weight with my kids. I got right back into shape, didn't even look like I had a baby. So my clients and everyone kept saying, you need to write the book. We need to know the secret. How do you look so good? You just had a baby. And so that one was 20 years ago. And the last three that were bestsellers, one is called Mom and Dadpreneurs, and that was really about, putting your family first and then tending to whatever your talents are so that you can still earn a great income, love what you do, be someone who does really, really well, but without having to sacrifice. And this was way before COVID, way before people, even considered working from home. But I did come home 21 years ago and I started figuring it out and was able to actually earn more working from home than I did when I owned my health clubs and was running around with the corporate sites and the school. So I wanted to share stories of other people who were able to do that. So I handpicked about 30 people. Some were traditional families, some were single moms, adoptive families, blended families, some were highly educated, some came here as immigrants. But just to be able to share their story to give people hope that you don't need to, have a daycare center raise your kids or miss out on all the things. You can figure out a way to, do what you love, get paid really well, and still be there for your family. So that was the first book. The second book was called Passionistas, and that's basically what would you say to your younger self. So that was written by women who were, more mature, speaking to that millennial woman who, wow, I mean, the millennials have so much going for them. They're so brilliant and so quick to learn. But there's also some wisdom that comes with age. So just wanted to share the stories of overcoming and resilience and, get back up again when you've been knocked down. And so that shares those stories. And then the most recent one, which actually is just a year ago now, that went bestseller on Amazon, is called Success Habits of Super Achievers. And
Hmm.
over 80 people were interviewed for this book. And there are people that, if you follow personal development at all, you would recognize the names like Brian Tracy and Mark Victor Hansen and Les Brown and, so many amazing people. Darren Hardy, who was the editor of Success Magazine. There are athletes, pro athletes, and entertainers that are in there. And basically, they were ordinary people who did something extraordinary. And typically, when you find people do something so extraordinary, they have come and done some major, transformation through a difficulty. So it just tells how they got back up again. And there are also pretty specific keystone habits that super achievers do. So I usually tell the people read one story a day, for 80 plus days. If you get up every morning and read one of these stories, you will be so inspired. You'll stop feeling like a victim or having a pity party. Or if you're feeling great, you're just going to want to take it to the next level because of the extraordinary things that these people did. But you'll also see that there's certain consistent things that successful super achievers do.
Wow. Well, I think we're gonna break this down even further because the three books you mentioned, I think they all are important and to everybody that's watching or listening right now. And we're gonna talk about more about that. And you're hitting on some big concepts here. And I mean, success, achievement, all those things are huge, right? And a lot of people, sometimes to your point, they have doubts or they have a lack of inspiration because the circumstances do happen. And sometimes people, they just don't have the environment to push them. I mean, obviously what we're doing today is to bring that fire out, and the energy and people like, yes, I want to be like that. And you obviously can relate to all those things because you've done that. And that's awesome, right? Because it's passion because you know what it takes and you know it wasn't easy. But as you bring in all these stories, whether in the third book or even sharing the stories with wisdom to the new generation, and ultimately the first book that was a hit, which is how to be, in your best shape, including after having children and all the stuff and do. So these are all, I think, excellent points that we'd like to actually deliver today. So the first one is you had kids. And you know what it is? I actually work in, with the fitness, world because we do have a fitness brand. And I can tell you one of the biggest thing, and 80% of our membership is ladies and women. And the hardest part is about getting back in shape after having kids. That's like a big deal, right? I think it's everybody, but I think for ladies, it's just more important, right? And I mean, it's just the body goes through a whole transformation and you have to bring it back to the shape. And sometimes like, wow, how did you manage to do that? And a lot of people have, hard time to get there. And because they don't know how to do it. I mean, ultimately throughout the pregnancy and after the pregnancy, right? And that's a big deal. So you have that experience, you've done it, and you've gone back and you're like, I'm here. I want to show you how it's done. So was there anything specific that you did that helped people, that helped you, and ultimately that you were able to share with the folks?
Absolutely. Well, first is if you haven't had your baby yet, as you go through your pregnancy, that is the time to stay the course. You don't need to overfeed. You don't need to stop moving. You don't need to, put junk in your body. That is the time where you want to be active. You want to be the healthiest you've ever been. You want to ultra nourish your body. So, you can gain anywhere from 12, up to 18, 20 pounds, but there's really no reason to gain 50 pounds, 60 pounds. It's just not necessary. So from the start, having your mindset that a baby is about 7 pounds, and you might have another, 7 or 8 that you need for placenta, water weight. Just have a healthy pregnancy and exercise throughout. Stay hydrated. You're much more likely to have a healthy delivery. And then you're not starting from, wow, I've got 50 pounds to lose. You might have 8 or 10 or 12 pounds to lose. So keep that in mind as you're going through pregnancy. And then once you are ready, that's usually when the women are the most motivated. Like after you've had the baby, like, wow, you've never been more motivated to get your body back than that. Not everyone, but a lot of times. So obviously, exercise, as you can return to doing strength training and stretching. There are absolutely protocols out there for postnatal. So look those up. Your joints are very lax, so you don't want to, overdo things and go too heavy. If you're breastfeeding, there's definitely guidelines for that. So look those up and follow those guidelines. But sleep is as important as you can possibly get with a newborn. So whether that means taking shifts with the husband, do that. Any chance you can get to catch up on sleep, your body will really heal faster. And that helps with detoxification. It helps with hunger. It helps with getting your hormones regulated. When you're not getting enough sleep, everything else is thrown off. Your hormones are off, your body's stressed out, you're not releasing toxins and so on. So the simple things like hydration, let water be your only beverage, the exercise, the sleep, those are kind of the primary things. A lot of it is mindset as well, that, be patient with yourself because you did just produce a baby. And so you may not spring right back. Genetics will have something to do with it, but we do know that we can absolutely overcome genetics. So do what you can to keep your stress down. When you're stressed out, it's tough to lose weight. Get outside, self-care, get in nature, have some time where you're doing things for yourself, because it's a huge commitment to the baby. And if you're letting yourself go, we know that's when postpartum depression can set in. So do things to really nourish and care for yourself as best as possible. And find some fun things to do as well outside of the baby. Don't lose yourself as a couple. That's important because there's so much psychologically that goes on there.
Kelly, I have to say, I mean, you've just, in about less than 5 minutes, gave everybody the formula of success here, to really go through pregnancy and still stay fit and do it all. And I have to say, I mean, you obviously speak because it's your passion. You've been there, done that, and also you have all the background to it. So it's awesome. And that's actually some of the key elements that people ask all the time. And I've heard all these questions. How can I do it? Can I do this? And there are a lot of women, actually, sometimes they think they cannot exercise during pregnancy, or what kind of exercise they can do. And sometimes they just give up. And then also you have the cravings and they eat all the junk. So I think your advice right now, I mean, is pretty straight to the point. I mean, anyone can listen to this and like, oh, I can do this. Yes, you can. And that's important, because I think that's huge. And hopefully will help a lot of people, a lot of ladies, a lot of women, if they're planning to be pregnant, or they're pregnant, or just starting, or even if they're finished, there's a way out. So this is a good way to at least give them, and maybe they can seek that book and hopefully get all the good juice and the good enlightenment from the book directly. So that's the first one. So thank you for that. Now let's talk about that second book. And the idea of, and it's important because the generations, right? It's you're talking about millennials right now, and they live in their own world. I mean, I have a few, I have kids, and I can, all of them are millennials, but I can relate because I work with some, and there is a very unique way about them, right? And sometimes when we live, and by the way, I think every generation had some similar stuff, because while you're in your generation timeline, you basically do what's in, right? But we all think that we have the future, and things are going to be there, and we know it all, until time goes by and be like, what would I have changed in my life? What could I have done differently? And sometimes people also, what we can avoid I think that's the key. Like right now, the message that we want to deliver is that these are some things that you might not want to even attempt or do because they're just not going to be good for you. Right. So let's dive into that book and what's the core messaging of it, to millennials or any other generation for that matter.
Yeah, so it's the wisdom looking back. So it's what would you tell your younger self? And usually it's things like, have more fun. We take things way too seriously. Comparison is absolutely the thief of joy. So if you're going to spend your life, especially with the millennials, where it's all about, what's on social media and the filters and people feeling depressed and left out and suicidal, and that stuff is less important than you realize, and you really need to put some boundaries on yourself about the time you're spending on social media. And just stopping that self-rejection is another one. People are so hard on themselves, especially younger women, and that self-rejection can lead to so much dysfunctional behavior. They're just so critical of themselves and they self-sabotage, and it's just so unhealthy. Another one would be, let's see, wisdom for your younger self. There's so many great lessons in that book. There's less you can control than you realize. So there's not as many things that are in control. And if you are trying to control everything, you're going to be miserable. You're going to make everyone you live with or work with miserable. So realize that there's less that you can't control than you can control. And there's just a freedom that goes with that to, do your part, and then, have some peace about or be open to what's not your responsibility. So there's people who are hyper responsibility, trying to control everything. And then there's people who, don't take any responsibility. So there's always two sides to a ditch. So you don't want to be in either ditch. For example, there's perfectionists who want everything to be great, and they, procrastinate, and they really don't get anything done, and they're miserable and make everyone else miserable. It's so unrealistic. And then there's people who just, they don't care about anything, how they look, what they eat, so, it's like talking about fitness, the anorexic eating disorder, and then the person who's obese. Neither one are healthy. We want to be somewhere in the middle. So there's some balance to everything. So make sure you're not finding yourself in some ditch. Respect yourself, respect other people, be honoring, be in gratitude is, some of the key points that are in that book.
They're very powerful points, and I know this is just a quick summary you gave us here, but definitely, I mean, you touch on many elements there. One, being content and know that there are things that you can't do. There's nothing you can do about them. I think that's a big deal, because if you want to change the world, sometimes you're not going to be able to, and so you can, and then you stress out about it, like why, and then you like start asking questions that you have no answers for. So that's, to your point, that is a big deal, and the minute we realize our limitations, I think sometimes it helps. Now, that doesn't mean we cannot improve and always seek solutions and improvement, but to your point, it's just more about how we go about it. And same thing, like you said, there is the influencer, world, or influence, world today in social media specifically, and everybody wants to almost be, a copy of everybody else that's out there, and it's playing on their mindset, and it's playing on their mental state, because a lot of people now, they identify through other looks and feels, like, I have this, that means I have to have it. I look like this, I have to look like it. Even dress code these days, it's almost like the same thing, like everybody's twins or clones. I look at the younger generation, I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, like, you go anywhere, they look the same dress code. And maybe every generation had the same thing, because we all kind of had our own looks for the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, and so on. But I think it's more about, now we have more influence than we had before. Before, you had TV, maybe movies, and you look like some stars, and it looks cool, like it's a trend. Now it's like you have, normal people that are becoming stars on their own in social media. So YouTube, the TikToks, and they have their own style. And then there's also brands that actually benefit from that. So therefore, there is that influence, and so that's becoming more of an in thing today. But it's not real. I think that's the key. It's real for what it is at that time, but is it going to be everlasting, long time? I don't think so. There's a time, like, I've been through a couple of years of life too, so I can tell you, a few decades in, you change your way of living, your way of style thinking, and all this stuff. Kind of, you have a different outlook of things. Like, wait a minute, and again, I do share some stuff with you in terms of ambition and dreams and achieving and all that. And I do a lot of trainings as well, and I talk about these things. And it's almost like when you transit from decade to decade, you actually start seeing yourself thinking differently. You're slowing down, for example, in a lot of things. You know, I don't have to stress anymore. Like I really don't care anymore. You know what people think, whatever. You know, you do you, I do me. So stuff like that is something that we don't possibly have to experience it when we get older. We can actually just, you know, reset today if we want to at any age. But we don't have that, and we didn't have that stuff in like when I was, you know, in my 20s, for example. I didn't have those guidances and, you know, and influences to tell me like, hey, you can stop, you know, don't go crazy right now. So you do things and you try, like, you know, you really get things, you know, just through trials, but sometimes it does take a toll on you. And I think for our you know, advice is like, you don't have to do that. So learn the greatest tools from the greatest people and take away anything that is not good. And you don't have to actually experience it to know it's bad. Just have, you know, learn about it from other people's bad experiences and remove it. So there's so many things. So I think your book is awesome, you know, as far as, you know, the content here. I think it's great. And thank you for actually sharing with us some of the core elements of it. And I don't know if you wanted to say something there. No.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking of some of the other lessons that, as you were talking, and one of them is definitely patience. You know, because the millennials,
Oh
are,
yeah.
you know, it's a microwave society. Like, you know, just press the button and, you know, it's at your door the next day. And patience. You know, if you look in history at anyone who achieved anything great, you know, it was a 20-year overnight success. And it's harder for this generation to realize sometimes things take time and they happen for a reason in a season, and it's not just instant. And another good lesson in the book that just came to my mind was to always take the high road. I know that, you know, that's a lesson, even I'm in my 50s, that, you know, I'm always making sure that I do in any situation. That's one of the barometers for how I decide what to do. Like, am I taking the high road? And sometimes for these younger people, it's so easy to get caught up in, you know, oh, I just send a text message, and you're really not, you know, empathetically attached to the person that's receiving it on the other end. So, you know, have more empathy, take the high road. Sometimes you need to, you know, delete the text, delete the email. You might want to type it out and then just like delete it because it's not the most excellent. It's not the highest good. So sometimes I think people can get wrapped up in drama or gossip or
Oh yeah.
whatever, and it's just not worth getting sucked into that.
But you said key word. I mean, it's wisdom, right? So the wisdom gets us to that point where we realize it's not even worth it, right? But you're right. I mean, because they're caught up in that moment, and many people actually, even people that are older, they get into that. But it's just a matter of habits, right? Training ourselves to just like whatever. I'm moving on. I don't care. It's not. You know, you're not touching me with this. I'm not even feeling it. So you can scream what you want, do whatever you want. It doesn't affect me. Like I'm like just dead to you. You know, but you hit on a very big element of and I do believe in this concept whereby people today, or the younger generation, they feel that the world owes them. And it's a sense of entitlement that's almost been, you know, given, that things are just going to happen, which the reality of things, that's not happening. And to your point, no success happens overnight. But the reason they believe that is because there are a lot of folks. I mean, you open up TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and you see like, oh, millionaires, you know, Ferraris, this, that. I mean, you know, they're not telling you what it took to get there. They're just telling you like, here. So you're seeing the end result, but you're not seeing the actual, you're like literally looking at the tip of the iceberg as opposed to the actual roots, right? So that's a big deal. And people, because they see that, they think like, oh, they did it. You know, I should just be able, it's easy. I think I have it, but you can't. You have to go through the steps, and you have to go through, you know, not failure, but, you know, you have to attempt multiple times. And if you're lucky, you'll get it like the first shot, the second shot, whatever. But again, don't give up. But at the same time, don't think that it's just like, hey, I'm going to go out there and the world is going to owe me. I want to, I have to give you as a joke, but it's true. My son, the first car he wanted was like, you know, a Jaguar or an Audi. I'm like, dude, take it easy. You know, you want to start a little bit, you know, on the slower end, you know, because that's not going to happen, right? It could happen. And the reason he thought that, because he was driving, I had a Benz, and so he was driving with me in it. So he thought that was it. I was like, I got in the Benz when I was 40. You better take some time to get there. But again, I do want him to have something better at earlier, but they have to understand the value of those things, right? And if it's a dream, you set it up. That's great. Work for it. Not a problem. We want people to be achievers. We want people to have the best lives. As a matter of fact, the more successful people in the world, that's better for us, right? But they have to have expectations of the reality of things. Not everything is going to work your way. And I think the millennial, generation, even the newer generation, is having this dilemma whereby the whole society changed. Like school has changed the way they talk to people, right? You can do whatever you want practically in school these days, right? We didn't have those, options. They were a little bit more firm, right? You can say anything. You can't talk to anybody anyway now. It's like, so you can even, and even at home, kids cannot be reprimanded for the most part. It's been like almost a taboo. You can't scream at your kids. You can't do it. So people are growing up where like there's no repercussions. There's no ramifications. They're just like, it's a free world. I can do whatever I want, freedom, liberty. But then when they hit the real thing, they go to corporate. Oh, that's not how it works. There are rules here. Yes, there are rules. I also have like a daughter, and she just started working, and it's funny because she thinks that she can dictate to the job like what she wants. Like, I don't want to work now. I want to come back the next day. Don't put me on this day. That's not how the job works. They tell you when to show up, and you better show up. But that's how it used to be. At least that's how I have, for example, been in the business. That's how you do it. But so the mindset or the style of living or the lifestyle in general has changed a little bit. So your concepts, your values, I think they're big for people to really just reset and know the reality is not what you think. The reality can be different. You can be living in a cloud, or like a sci-fi movie, but it's not real. You better get off and see the real thing. I mean, it's like get off the matrix, get in the real world, right? And that's a big deal. So that's important. I know you're laughing and you're smiling, so you wanted to add something. Go for it.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on parenting, but I want my kids to fail, and I want them to fail often and fail fast and to learn from it. If you look at people like, Richard Branson or, some of these top, what the world would consider successful people, they failed more than anyone. It's like Michael Jordan, who took, the most shots, who missed the most shots. That's why he makes the most shots. So you want to do it when they're young. Let them fail at home, give them choices, let them have consequences, let them see boundaries. And so that by the time they get to the point where they are, leaving the house and going off on their own, they understand failure and they're able to handle it and figure it out and get back up again and keep going. So it doesn't devastate them, and they don't get depressed, and they don't get angry, and they don't stuff their feelings down, and they don't commit suicide, all these horrific things that we're seeing happening because they're not equipped. Because our generation did give our kids and give and give and give and give. And that's why a lot of them do feel entitled. I mean, they have $1,000 cell phone in their hand when they're, 5, 6 years old. And so they do feel entitled a lot of times. Not everyone, but that's kind of this generation, this millennial generation. They're quick. It's a microwave society. Everything happens in an instant. And so when something is hard and they have to really press in and figure it out, they're quick to quit. They are not used to doing labor. They're not used to having to think or remember. I mean, they don't remember a phone number, and, not anything against them, but these are life skills. These are things that are important. I'm all for technology. I mean, it helps us use it where you can, but you also still need to be able to use your memory to think and remember things. You need to be equipped to succeed in life, and it's just not realistic to think you're going to get everything fast and everything's going to be successful and everything's going to be the best and it's going to be easy. It just isn't. Life is hard and there is struggle, but it can still be fun. It can still be joyful. It can still be peaceful. It can still be adventurous, but you need to, figure out the hard things at the same time.
Well, it's funny. I'm having a little smirk here because you talked about technology and all the stuff, and you're right. Like if just God forbid you lose power these days. I mean, and I've had that before, like where we had a storm and the power was lost, and the kids were actually lost because they didn't know what to do with themselves. They were just like, "What are we doing?" So they went back to the old school, say, "Oh, can we play some board games?" So here we are actually under, lanterns and like camping, equipment, doing, a nice family time with the games. But that's the thing. Like, even I had this challenge one time. My daughter said, well, I don't need to actually figure out math because I can do a calculator on my phone and just figure out, well, what happens if you don't have a phone? Now, what are you going to do? If you don't know how to do it, it's going to be a problem, right? So again, being able to have the technology and being able to live without it, that's important. When something happens, and even the pandemic, a lot of things, we had storms in a lot of areas. I mean, in Texas last year, I mean, you guys were the whole winter thing, the storm that happened, nobody was expecting to have, ice in Texas and pipes, bursting and stuff. It was like a shocker for a lot of people, but you don't know what can happen, right? And so we have to be always, malleable to be able to adjust to technology, but also be able to live without it if we can. And that's the concept, because again, we have so many things available to us today that we didn't have years back. Again, the phones used to be phones. Now they're not phones. They're true computers. I mean, you can do, it's a camera, it's a phone, it's a TV, it's everything. It's movie theater, whatever you want is in that phone. Back in the days, it's just a phone. It's a communicate with others, period and now. And, even before the cell phones, we had to actually get a quarter and go to a place. But technology has evolved so fast and so quick. I mean, now look, we're Zooming, right? and we can talk to the whole world instantly. And so it's just different. But the sense of entitlement, to your point, the parents also have been so, some of us also have that whole concept, like, well, I had a hard life, a tough life, so I want to give all that love to my kids and really spoil the hell out of them. But in essence, you're not really teaching them real skills for life, because the first, event that's going to happen to them, they're going to not know how to face it, right? They're not going to be able to survive. And that's, to your point, that's what's causing some of these challenges and, psychiatry, issues and so on and so forth, God forbid, even suicide. So that's actually real. And so again, your book, your advice is so well worth it, every minute to study it, to review it. And there's plenty of it, right? And I know you're only giving us a couple elements there, but there's more to it. But that's really what I know, that's what drove you to write the book, is to share these values. And that's also, I had a show about, Givers University, like to be given and give back to the community, give back to people. And that's really a big deal. And that's what we're trying to achieve here, is just to give this to folks. And so if they're watching, parents or otherwise, there is something. If you're doing something wrong, maybe you can, see it today. If you're not doing something wrong, well, maybe you can do more of the good, right? So there's nothing, anything bad about, getting more feedback. Sometimes even just a reminder, of these things is important for us. And even if you're doing everything solid, sometimes you just, I tend to not do this. Maybe I should. And it can help people just reset. And that's important. So that also, I think we were talking all about this when talking about the second book, but it almost touched on the third book about success. So I want to actually ask you to repeat the title of the book again one more time, because it's got almost like 4 elements there that people need to really, really absorb.
Yes, the third book is Success Habits of Super Achievers. And this is the one that has some amazing world-class personal development leaders like Les Brown and Darren Hardy, Mark Victor Hansen, Brian Tracy, and so on. And it tells their stories. There's professional athletes and world-class entertainers in there of how they overcame something really hard, and in doing it and being in the trenches and being on their knees and being emptied out and having their world blown up or whatever it looked like, they had to go through a process of healing, of getting over something really tough, and then figuring out, what do I need to do? And they not only got better, but they did something really profound and amazing in that. So it's in the hard times, in the dark times, in the, those head banging, door kicking, those moments where you feel like you're at the bottom in the valley and you might not be able to see the light, that you start to, one breath at a time, one step at a time, really figure out, it's not always going to be this hard. I have in me what it takes to get up again, get better. And then once you do, you want to do something great with it, whatever the motivation might be, whether it's for yourself and your family or your team, your company, your business, the world, whatever it looks like. So this tells those really inspiring stories. And I still go back and I reread these every time I, think I'm having a pity party or feeling sorry for myself. I read one of those stories and I'm just blown away by what people have overcome and what they've done. And you see people on the street, wherever, in the mall, on the subway, and you have no idea what their story is. I mean, people are amazing. They're so resilient. No one has done anything of any level of success in the world who hasn't overcome something so great. So this book tells these stories. And again, there's a theme in there. You'll see things they do, whether it's, goal setting or meditation. There's just things that all super achievers tend to do. And as you read through the book, you'll see some things are consistent.
Well, I mean, I just love the title. I mean, success habits for super achievers. And, super achievers here is a big word. I mean, it's two words actually. And success is on its own, it's a whole concept. And habits is practice, right? It's things that you do routinely. And I think when you combine all that, I mean, for even just listening to it, it should give us a sense of like, oh, I want to be part of that, right? And but there's that other side where people say, well, I can never be like them. See, some people are almost like they talk negative to themselves, or like they talk, just like they don't prep themselves, like, hey, you got this. From here, from this platform, we want to tell them, yes, you can. These folks were just like you, but they had, the dream, that to achieve things. They were willing to take the necessary chances and the risk, and no risk, no reward, right? That's what it says, right? So you have to do that. They were willing to fail, and that's okay, because again, the word failure, and we had a debate, not debate, discussion about it. It's not even. It's part of success. It is success. You have to fail to succeed in a way. You can't just succeed without testing things, right? And so people need to hear that to get excited about it, and that's okay. And we see achievers all the time. And at any level, I mean, at work, in society, stars, I mean, writers. I mean, there's so many people that we're surrounded by. And each one of them, you took a very nice, concentrated level of the highest ones, and you put them in that book. And that's the best thing you can do. I mean, I look at, some of these folks myself, and like, for example, one of my first job was at Disney. So my motto is my role model is, Walt Disney. And so himself, to me, like, he had a dream, and he achieved the dream. People laughed at him. Actually, he was kicked out of the paper because they said you lack imagination. Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, he created imagination beyond that, right? But that's the thing. Like, there's so many that we can name that missing Jordan. I mean, he missed, a lot. But you know what? In order for you to become the best, you got to practice, and you're probably going to lose a few. That's the thing. Nothing happens overnight, and you have to be, doing a lot more of it to be excellent at it. And even these guys, they're out there. They're not like they get the achievement and they just sleep after that. They're still out there. All these people you're mentioning, they're still live and kicking and doing their stuff and speaking around the world and sharing their wisdom. And that's important. So again, these concepts we'd like to bring to the table here for people to hear them, to listen to them, and really abide by them. Take them for what it's worth. The book is available, right? They can
Yes,
dig in there.
I will give your listeners a free electronic version if they want to go to my website. It's Kelli with an I, Kelli, Calabrese, CALABRESE.com. They can get the free ebook if they go to my website, and I'm happy to send it to them. Or they can go to Amazon and they can get it. Or if they want me to hand sign a copy, have them email me, and I will send it to them for the same price as Amazon, and I won't charge the shipping, and I'll sign it for them.
We can ask for more than that. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, listen, folks, I mean, we buy things sometimes that may be not as value, but sometimes a book can change your life. And, this is a book that can do that, because it's a book that is written based on real life stories of true success. And, even if you don't believe in success, you have your own definition of success. Maybe it's worth, checking out these folks and how their success formula was. And they have common themes, they have common elements together in how they got it. But each one of them had its own way and path, and also the background of why and how they did it. I mean, you mentioned earlier about immigrants, you mentioned different things. People have different reasons why they succeed. And everybody's almost got the same equal opportunity to succeed. I mean, regardless, I mean, I had one time a debate with someone that stated, well, your circumstances dictate how your future is going to be. I beg to differ. That's not the case. You can be, coming from nothing and be, become rich and stuff. It's not about rich. You can be rich in a lot of ways, not necessarily money or fame, but you can be rich in knowledge. You can be rich just by sharing, a piece of success with other people. There's a lot of ways to do this. But the bottom line is, you can't say, blame the world that, you can't do it. You can do it. as long as you're willing. If you have that, there's nobody that can stop you. And that's the part. And if someone has done it or is doing it, there's a good chance you can do it too. So thank you for the offer. And, folks, you're listening, you're watching, the description of the show will have the actual website, and you can reach out and get your signed copy, or get it from, the Amazon store, or even get your, electronic version of it. Right. So, but it would be nice to have the signature. but
Yeah, and I
again,
will just clarify, I will ship in the US. So if it's international, then, obviously they have to pay for a little extra for shipping, whatever the shipping charge is.
we'd expect that. I hope so. But that's good. That's a good disclaimer, so people don't have, oh, you told us we're gonna send it to you. But it does cost a lot to send overseas. But I mean, at least if you're overseas, you can get the electronic version, and that's easy. Or you can go to Amazon if Amazon is available, wherever you are. We do have actually audiences in Canada, in the UK, in Australia, and other parts of the world. So maybe someone be excited and want a copy. So hey, you know what to do. And again, check out the site, because I think Kelli does a lot more, and we're going to talk about the other part of her life and what she's been doing recently. And I think it's important from a different angle. So first of all, thank you for sharing those real live, I think, tools that we can apply. And again, you're giving us highlights, but I think if people can reach out and get the books and read them and dig in further, they'll get a lot more from them. And they're worth it. I mean, any investment that we invest in ourselves is key. So listening to this can be, sometimes I don't have time to listen to a podcast or a show. Sometimes that moment, that hour that you, instead of watching a movie and just stuffing food in your mouth, you can do the same thing. Just listen to this while you're doing something else. You could be working out and listening, and it may be boring, but you'll pick one or two elements that can change your life overnight. And really, that's all there is. And we all, I know you, I know me, we've done that. I've picked up things from people that I applied in my life, and they turned my life to a better person or better things, and a lot of outcomes that are positive outcomes. So it happened to me, happened to you, it can happen to a lot of folks. Well, I think everybody, for that matter. And they could be anywhere in the world, regardless. There are some basic elements that can help us be better and improve in our lives and achieve, any level we want. There is no limit. The sky's the limit of success if you want it, right? So now let's talk about Kelli today. Kelli's new, adventure, which is a very important thing. And it's going to sound weird, because I think, and I'll allow you to talk to us. Well, not allow you, but I'll tell you to talk to us about it in terms of what is it that you're doing in the last, the new trend or the new service or the new work that you do. But it is important because you have you call it a bonus life. So I'm being a little bit suspenseful about it. But so Kelli, let's talk about that part of your life and the change that happened, and how do you help people really do better?
Absolutely. So 24 years into my marriage, my husband came home and he said, my commitment to our marriage is 0. And he left. And it rocked my world. I mean, it really just felt like a tornado came in, blew up my life, and left a gaping hole in my heart. And the pain was like nothing I had experienced prior to that. And I had been through some life stuff. I lost my dad. I've had car accidents. I've been electrocuted. Lost my best friends to cancer. It's not like I hadn't been through some stuff, but this was just the big turning point for me. So I went on what I lovingly call a sabbatical, really just went on this healing journey where I needed to figure this out. So I did all the things. I went on the retreats. I went to divorce recovery classes. I was in Bible studies, prayer groups. I, went to conferences. I read the books, the TED Talks. I just did everything to figure out how to make the pain stop. I needed to heal and be better and to create a new life for myself. And there was a whole series of unreasonable things that happen when you get divorced. A lot of times, you're selling your house, which means you're changing your neighborhood. You may be changing your kids' schools. Your friend group may change because everyone was couples. Now they're singles. You're trying to manage your kids' heart. So it's just a lot. And it represents a big percentage of people. About 50% of first marriages end up in divorces. So once I got to a point where I felt like, okay, I've got this. And it's not that, you're ever fully healed. You can have little triggers and moments. But it was about this time last year when I got two kids off to college and they were set up for success at the schools they wanted. And they had, cars and computers and phones and they were playing their sports. And I sat down and just really contemplated, okay, what is this next season? And in the process of my own healing, I got certified as a divorce coach. And so I went through the 3-year journey and I handpicked the most valuable things that really moved the needle for me in being a difference maker and peeling back the layers and getting me to wholeness and healing. And I put together a course. It's an 8-week course and there's 8 topics. And I'll tell you what they are real quick: identity, forgiveness, renewing your mind, purpose, self-love and gratitude, divine health, abundant wealth, and then joy and celebration is the last chapter. And I created a course with an entire healing guide that goes with it. So there's meditations, affirmations, visualizations, activations, and celebrations that go along with it. And I also interviewed 21 of the people that helped me on my healing journey. So my divorce coach, my breath therapist, my meditation therapy, my grief counselor, all the people who helped me. And I allow the people who go through the coaching to really be a fly on the wall to these people who I handpicked and chose to be a part of this healing process. And then I also do some one-on-one coaching for people who want that, next level, that they, want to really understand forgiveness or wherever it is they might be stuck, because people get stuck in grief. I mean, we're not really equipped or trained. Even all the personal development that I had done since I was 17 until I got divorced, I was not prepared for this. I didn't know what depression was. I had never been depressed before. I really was never angry before, but that's part of it. You need to get angry. I'm not a person who normally is, but it's part of the grieving. You need to be angry that you lost the life that you had. There's sadness, there's a whole series to eventually getting to a place where you readjust and you get healthy. And then from healthy, I take them to, there's this whole amazing, incredible life out there that you didn't even know was possible before, that you now have the opportunity to live. So I take them from anywhere from we're thinking about getting divorced, and obviously the best thing is, as long as it's healthy and not abusive, to keep the marriage. And I have helped to restore a lot of marriages, which that's the most excellent. To they've been divorced for 7 years, but they still keep repeating the same guy with a different face and name, but it's the same addiction or the same enabling
Personality.
or the same, whatever the dysfunction is. So want to get people unstuck. And, when someone thinks about someone who's gone through divorce, or it could be anything hard, the loss of death, they get stuck. And whether it's in sadness or victimhood or bitterness, I just hate that people get stuck there, because our lives are so short and they're so amazing, or at least they can be. So I really want to help people, coach them through and get them to that place where they can be peace filled and excited about life again.
Well, Kelly, I have to say, first of all, I am just like in awe, because the idea of just overnight, you just wake up and, hey, we're terminating this relationship. That has to be devastating. I think for any both sides of the family, if it came in from any spouse, I think it would be a shocker for the other member, right? That is not something anyone thinks that, my significant other or my spouse, and the next day will come in and say, I don't want to be here. By the way, I've heard that before. So this is not the first time I heard it. And the first time I heard it was a shocker, because it was like, how does that even happen? I mean, normally there are signs. There's supposed to be signs. Things is not.
The person who asked to leave, they've been thinking about it on average for 2 years. So they have a 2-year head start. So they're already thinking, okay, I'll move out, I get an apartment, I'll tell my mom, all these things. So for about 2 years, they've been planning this when they have that moment. And then the other person is obviously in shock. And then the person who asked to leave, they feel a lot of guilt, remorse, and shame for breaking up their family. And the person who is left feels rejected and, they're dealing with a whole other set of issues. So it depends on, kind of how it went down, if you left or you were left. And there's a lot of dynamics and nuances to it. And it depends on, the person. So the divorce coaching, it's fun, it's interesting. I just want to get people to move through it. And I'm not saying I can rush it, like we can do this in 30 days, or it does take time, but I can definitely help move them along to become healthier than they've ever been.
Well, that's excellent because based on what, I mean, the statistic you mentioned is almost crazy. When you're talking about 50% of marriages, first marriages wind up in divorce, that is a huge number. And wow, I mean, some people say, well, have you experienced this? Everybody may question it differently because it affects some other, this is not about me. It can happen to me. I think sometimes people have to realize that if it happened to others, it can always happen to us. And sometimes the divorce happens as a decision, between the two parties, and it's mutual, and there's consent, and they're friends. And I actually had that experience personally. So we were friends until, I mean, my ex-wife did pass away, a couple of years back, but we were friends all along. So that was one way of doing it. And I always believe that if it's not working out, we have to work it out regardless, because we had a son and so on and so forth. So I understand, that part of it. But for someone to just kind of like come in suddenly and just say, okay, bye-bye. I mean, that's like extreme. I mean, that's like not something, and especially if you haven't even seen it coming, that's a big deal. And to your point, I mean, the number that you said of years that it took for that person, based on your statistics and studies, 2 years. I mean, that person has to be really good. I mean, to be able to hide that, 2 years and really prep for it, it's like, I mean, it takes less than for us to send a shuttle to Mars now these days. Right? For someone to really practice that for 2 years and be like ready to just like switch off, like, nothing happened. That's extreme. And I know it's hard for in your case, but then for anyone else, they would probably experience that.
Yeah, when you look back and you reflect, obviously, you can see that it was a slow fade. So it happened in a moment, the words, but it was, a slow fade over time. And it's never 100% the other person and 0% you. So part of the healing includes taking your responsibility in it, even if it was unfair, even if it was unjust, even if there was an affair, whatever might be in there, you still need to own your part in it. And again, there's nuances to the dynamics of a marriage and what a man's needs are and what a woman's needs are. And sometimes you just get in this vicious cycle of not only not meeting each other's needs, but really hurting each other. So yeah, knowing what I know now, I can help a lot of people to save their marriages, even if only one person wants to do it. So,
well, that's excellent. And because you're right. I mean, eventually realize what the signs were. There probably were signs that you just didn't pay mind to, because you would never think that that's going to happen, right? Because people also they're in denial. This is never going to happen to me. But you're right. But I think most important piece in this whole, equation is the children. So I'm sure some of these cases, they have kids. And I think that's the hardest part, because now the kids are in between, and most of those bad divorces wind up, affecting the children. And I think that's a big deal. So how do you address that? I mean, obviously you have your own tools, and I love the concept about your 8 weeks, program and all the topics that you cover. But in there, is there anything to practice or to help them with, the kids' vision of all this? Because I mean, the kids are like torn between the father, the mother, and then they don't know which sides, and sometimes they take sides too, because depending on the influence of each one of those parents, one can be like, your dad sucks, your dad is bad, and feeding all the bad, or vice versa, your mom is awful, blah blah blah. Now the kids are, especially at a younger age, they don't know the difference. They just start siding up, and they don't even know what happened, but they just become pretty much attached to one versus the other and rejecting the other. So how do you handle that?
yeah, so those are all great questions. The statistics for divorced children are not very good. I mean, their chances of teenage pregnancy, crime, being in jail, dropping out of school, just anything you can imagine that's, criminal activity, depression, suicide is so much higher for divorced kids versus not divorced kids. Even when it's amicable, children still always want their parents to be together, and they still, feel torn. And depending on their age, they're trying to manage it in their minds as best they can. But it doesn't have to be that way, just like anything else. You don't need to be a statistic of divorce. I actually have a free report on that same website, kellycalabrese.com, how your child does not need to be a statistic of divorce. Things the parents will do, like you talked about, like pitting the child against the other. Here, bring your dad as male, or
Hmm.
kids do not want to be in the middle of your arguments. They don't want to be your messengers. They don't want to be pawns. They don't want to be, used in court. They want to be manipulated. So you really have to, that's why it's important to always work on yourself. Because if you can get healthy, if you can take the high road, if you can be in peace, if you can forgive, then you're not going to, take it out on your children, use your children, against your ex-husband, or ex-wife. So counseling, I would say, whatever you can do, possibly keep their lives as close to normal as they were so that they can readjust to their new normal. And then counseling is always a good idea. Have some outlets where they can express their feelings, where they can, talk about what they're angry about, or, whatever it is that their kids will manifest it differently. A lot of times boys will be more aggressive, more angry. Girls tend to shut down. They'll close themselves off in their room. They'll self-isolate. So kids are going to try and figure out a way to be loved. Like, how can I be loved? Some kids will try and be the good girl or the good boy because they don't want to, cause more problems in the house. And others will be the, the good student or the good athlete, the good musician. Others will be the rebel. And I'm just gonna push the limits. This is how I'm gonna get attention. I don't care if it's bad attention. It's how I get attention. Other ones, when I'm sick, that's when I get love and attention. So they're always, they become almost hypochondriacs. Oh, I've got a headache, because they get to lay down. Everyone has to be quiet. Or so you just have to really pay attention to your kids and what are they doing, and they're probably going to do different things because they're different. Um, my kids were 16 and 17, so they were a little bit older, but still really challenging ages, just getting their licenses, that first boyfriend, girlfriend, that first job, leaving the house, being more independent, moving. It was a lot. And they pressed things down. So that was their way. They kind of just stuffed it all in and went about their things. But eventually, whatever's inside you, when you're squeezed, when you're pressed, is going to come out. So whether it's defensiveness or, anger, at some point it needs to be dealt with or not. The or not is going to result in something pretty bad. You're not going to have good relationships. You're not going to trust people. So it really is important that people work these things out.
Well, Kat, thank you for those tips right there. They're excellent tips. But let me ask you a question. The folks that you assist or help throughout these I guess tough times, both sides, and do you see those that you were able to really get them one way or the other, either to come back together and have a happier life, or even dismantle but in a good way? Do you see that the kids in that realm get better and there's a positive impact through those particular I guess times, as opposed to people that may not? I'm sure you've done some statistics and things for people that actually just don't mediate. They don't have any type of coaching, and they just do it and wing it out, and then obviously they don't know how to handle it, and then the kids wind up the statistics. So do you see a real outcome, a positive change in the behavior of those children when they actually in the system, in the program?
I do, yeah. And some of these things do take time, but a lot of times these women, they get in such fear because now, they're afraid about money. They're afraid about, I'm living alone for the first time. Can I provide? Everything's changing. So they're just in this fear tornado. And so they don't want to project that onto the kids. So I give them the courage, the boldness, the assertiveness, because the kids are looking for boundaries. Otherwise, they're going to go and, run wild, and they're looking for a target. And typically it's the strong parent. And a lot of times they wind up living with the mom more than the dad, typically. Sometimes it's 50-50, but a lot of times the mom becomes the target of their anger. And she's trying to manage, like, okay, I know they're hurting. I know they're upset. I know, there's bullying going on at school or whatever else is happening in their lives. It's hard enough being a middle school kid or whatever it might be. So they don't maybe discipline them because maybe the dad was a disciplinarian. So anyway, I help the women with boldness, with courage, with boundaries, with assertiveness, but also unconditional love, because that's really what their kid is looking for. Their kid wants to be seen. Their kid wants to be loved for who they are. but the mom also has to guard her own heart. She can't let her kid bully her, attack her, be the target of all the anger. So I do see a difference, even in just let's get a family meal together. Like you can do that one thing. Let's go back to, you've got a time where everyone's going to sit down and eat, and then give them ideas about, just conversation and fun time, and that it's not all hard. It's not all stress. It's not all struggle, but just starting with something as simple as, okay, 4 nights a week or 4 days a week, we're going to have a family meal. And so much can ripple out just from something as simple as that. So I help them, regroup from the chaos and the fear back to doing, practical things. And they do see progress. And the kids kind of realize, I can't bully mom, but I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be safe. Mom's going to be, they want to see mom's going to be okay too. So if mom is sitting there just, in a ball, just, hysterical crying all the time, or, can't get out of bed, that's not good for the kids either. So I help mom get up. Let's get you healthy. They want to see mom's going to be okay. When they see you're going to be okay, then it makes them feel like they're going to be okay. So if we can get mom, healthy body, mind, spirit, emotions, that's a step in the right direction for the kids too.
Yeah, I have to say, I can see the passion in there. I mean, you're really like, feeling it. You're sharing that true, and again, you experience it. So you're actually helping from experience, and it's different, right? But so here's a question. I mean, someone would say, well, is this geared towards women specifically, or also it can help the men? I mean, because sometimes it's the other way around. It could be the female partner that actually, says, bye-bye, sayonara, I'm out of here. Right. So do you get to balance that out? I mean, do you have maybe male, clients that actually looking to be, in a better position?
Yeah, and it is 50-50. Sometimes it's the woman who leaves, sometimes it's the man who leaves. When I created my program last year, I did create it for women because that was, my heart as a woman. When I got divorced, my neighborhood, there was 110 homes. And at that time, 12 people were moving out and 8 of them were divorced. And so I was watching what the women were doing, and everyone's going to do something just to cope with the pain. So, I'm going to turn to alcohol. I'm going to run into the arms of another man. I'm going to isolate. I'm going to escape. So I wanted them to do something healthy. So when I created the program, it really was for women. I was shocked how many men reached out for me and said, what about me? What do you have for me? And this is not anti-man at all. This has nothing to do with man bashing, or my heart breaks for the men as much as it does for the women. So I can do coaching with the men, but the program is definitely, geared towards the woman. So the lessons and everything is done in the teaching in a feminine tense. However, I could do one-on-one life coaching with men, and I'd be happy to do that.
All right. Well, that's again, just so as the audience is listening, like, well, maybe this is not for me. Now it could be for you too. So I think it's a good opportunity to have a balance. And again, coming from you, you probably can help them to see that, because it's you understand the woman, you understand their mentality, how they operate, and as best as we can do it. I mean, we have to learn. We have to always be able to capture that, but it's hard, right? Unless you're like again, some of us, they have a feminine side, some of us have ladies around their life, their moms, their sisters and stuff, and so they have some feedback. But some people that may not have that, some men can be literally left in the case. But again, I just, the idea is that there are potentials of both sides to have the same situation and be in the same boat. So that's one question. So now I wanted to first of all, thank you. And how can people sign up for this program, by the way? Same website, just go in there?
Intentionally, they can go to kellicalabrese.com, but the website that I have for the program is called intentionallyfabulous.com. And I also have a private Facebook page, which is also called Intentionally Fabulous. It's a group where I really pour into that group every single day. I'm just encouraging them, and we talk about the hard things, we laugh, we support each other. So any woman can go to that private Facebook page called Intentionally Fabulous.
All right. Well, again, we'll add all that, in the description so people have access and a direct link to you, because you just have too many things to offer, and we're gonna just take all of it, whatever we can do. I mean, listen, we're about just excess of the hour here, but I just want to ask a couple more questions, because we can do this for 2 hours right now easily. So this is totally off, and it's gonna like be sound funny. Well, two things. One, you had mentioned early on that you were able to make more money home and turn your life and stuff. And I think that's a key element I want to share even briefly, because people think that you always have to do things and you have to be like conform, go to work and all this stuff. But there are a lot of people that would love to enjoy that, especially parents and who have younger kids and they want to be there. And a lot of people have experienced the pandemic, how hard it was. And, even today, people, and there's this whole concept about vaccines. Some people may be, not vaccinated, and they may even lose their job. And so now it becomes a challenge. So this could be an opportunity for people to actually, there is a way to do this. Now you've done it. And is there a special formula that we can share with them briefly?
I would say that, there's some idea that you have inside you. There's some big idea, God idea. When you can take your purpose, and you may really have to do a deep dive to figure out what that is. I did know early on, and obviously it's evolved through the years, but figuring out what your life's mission is and what your purpose is, what really lights you up. Like, okay, and you just say, I see you. Like when you start talking, your energy comes up. It's because it's what's in my heart. So find what's in your heart. And when you can take your purpose and your passion and combine it, the profit will come. There's so many great models to follow out there. If someone wants to be a coach or start a business, do something online, find someone who's ahead of you who has done what you have done, and then model their success with whatever your idea is. I mean, if you think about Steve Jobs thought about the iPhone, that was only 20 years ago. If you look at Uber, there's been taxis, for 100 years. If you look at Airbnb, people have been renting, apartments and homes for years, but someone had those ideas recently. If you look at the electric car, so there's still so many things out there that can be done. So don't think, oh, there's too much competition, or I'm not smart enough, or you need to overcome those thoughts, but find someone who's doing what you want to do, model it, and then make it yours. There's something about you that makes it special. Your energy, your heart, your ideas, your passion that you can add to it. This is the greatest time for entrepreneurs, this COVID season. So many entrepreneurs have done phenomenally well because they did find a way to, pivot. So start with the vision, the purpose, the passion. Really do a deep dive and think about what lights me up, what gets excited, what is it that when I do it, I don't even realize that an hour, 2 hours, 8 hours just went by, because I'm so excited and happy about that. And what is my superpower, and how is that a problem that people have that I can solve for them? So it's about solving someone's problem. And there's so many problems. People have problems with money, they have problems with health, they have problems with stress. So what is it do you solve for someone? Is it that you can entertain them, make them happy? Is it you can help them do something better, quicker, faster? So you need to figure that out.
Well, thank you. I mean, those are real values, that we can all apply. And for everybody listening, I mean, again, this is a way for you to actually learn how to fish instead of getting the fish. So it's just a matter of, finding, the niche, and you can do it. So I think that's a key. So thank you for that. So before we end the show, you mentioned electric car, but I know there's a story about you with electricity.
Ah.
I want to just make some folks, just have a little interest, fun stuff here. So talk to us.
I grew up in Staten Island, New York, and people don't think of it as being an island, but it is. So we had a boat, and on the weekends we used to go, different places. And so this one weekend we went down the Jersey Shore and we docked at a marina, and we were going to go, use the pool and the restaurant and all that. So I hopped off the boat with a girlfriend. We went swimming in the pool. I came back to get on the boat, and what I didn't realize is that they were doing construction on the dock, and that there were live wires that were running up to light up the entire marina. So I was wet from the pool, standing on live wires, and I reached across to grab the metal ladder on the boat. So I
full
was
circle.
Yeah, electrocuted. So, just started screaming, the vulture going through my body. And my girlfriend, I was about 12, her instinct was to touch me, and it broke the current. So I was able to release my hands from the metal ladder, and I was suspended over the water. So I fell into the water. And August in New Jersey, there was a pool of jellyfish that just kind of grabbed my body and started pulling me down. So my dad jumped over the engines and reached down, pulled me up by my hair, and I had jellyfish all over my body. So it was traumatic at the time, but thankfully no long-term effects that I'm aware of.
Well, listen, I just wanted to end out. That's a story that is unique, and but it is for people. Just be careful out there. I mean, young folks, so listen. Don't always be mindful of what's going on around you, and you do not want to touch anything electric. And God forbid, if you do realize you're doing that, do not touch anything else to make it a full, circle where the flow goes through. So again, just a safety tip there. But thank you for sharing that. That is personal, but I thought it was funny because I know you have it on your history and your story, so I wanted to just address it. But so thank you, Kelli. It's been real. I mean, we had a great time, and we covered a lot of topics here, and I hope folks you've enjoyed the content here and the exchange, and so thank you for being with us, and for really giving us all that. Maybe we'll have a comeback. We'll talk about that. So hey, we'll see.
That'd be great. Well, thanks for all you're doing to bring this show to the world. It needs great topics like this. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Well, all right, folks. Hurricane H here. We'll talk to you guys soon. A different show, different topic, different guest. Ciao now. Bye-bye.